Alright. So look at this situation we got out here. We got ghost ice haunting the porch. See how it's haunting? The live ice is not haunting. It's still there, alive. But it's being haunted by the dead ice. It's like shrinking, like, and becoming like ghost ice remnants, like haunting my porch, you know? Ghost ice. Supernatural ideation would lead us to believe that the ice didn't just melt and create water spots on my porch. We would believe that it's ghost ice and it's haunting the porch and the other ice, and that is how we explain that phenomenon that we don't understand. But you and I both know that that is not ghost ice. That's just regular ice. And no, the ice isn't haunting. It's just like wet on the porch. And the ice that is diminished in size is actually regular ice, and it's just different states of being of that same like water molecule. Yeah. So if you think about that in regards to our consciousness and what we believe and what we know and the limits of our information and the limits of the information of the people dispensing information to us. Because if we don't know anything about something, anybody that knows a little bit more than us is the expert in the room. Unless you have exposure to the amalgamation of the information, like context, to be able to understand the complex formats of that idea. But anyway, I digress from the point. The mind is a crazy thing, man. Supernaturally ideating everything that we don't know, like having similar things play out in life, like synchronistically almost, wondering why those things keep playing out. Well, maybe it's the ghost ice phenomenon. Maybe there are things that keep happening, but there's an unconscious reason why these things keep happening, that we keep creating the same reality over and over. And I find learning more and more about the mind and the neurology behind the processes that enable us to perceive the world, it is very enlightening. I no longer believe in the ghost ice in my life, and I know that I can turn that lens, that critical lens of my focus to kind of peer through like disempowering ideology, peer through like unconscious assumptions in my own identity, personality, ego, and in my like culture and in my circle of orbit. Like who those people are, and like in their different moods and like different situations, different aspects of themselves will broadcast different ideas into your mind. And you might wonder where like these different ideas from the world are coming from. Like, where are these ideas that spontaneously spring forth in your mind when you're sitting alone and you don't understand why you would be like feeling or thinking that way? Perhaps it is like the great Robert Anton Wilson has said many times, content of consciousness is identical to its function, meaning that whatever is inside of our brain, inside of our mind, is essentially the building blocks for the thoughts that we're going to pattern into existence. And I say pattern into existence. What do I mean by that? Like organizing disparate packets of information into a cohesive whole, and like having an idea, a concept. Some of these concepts that we're building are made of horse shit, and like, to quote Terence McKenna, are pernicious forms of idiocy, like rampant in our society, that we should, you know, stand up in the polite situations and call bullshit on these faulty ideologies. But it's so woven into our culture to be like some people who would have the voice to say those things or saying something else, and the people that don't have the voice might not have the words to even like recapitulate that like better idea, that like higher vibrational idea, like that higher, like, better for like self and other, like in some kind of like hierarchy of needs kind of Maslow kind of way, where it's like we can, do away with shitty thinking and like even condoning shitty thinking in our society, and to be able to, as a society and as a people, or multiple internesting like diverse cultures of people, somehow be able to pair apart these like assumptions that we make in our culture, and understand like what is actually going on, what is actually playing out. And we might, be thinking frontally that we are living in accordance with our values while we're perpetrating something that is directly antagonistic of the very values that we consciously espouse and support. And it's so weird. It's like, and it doesn't have to do with like poor moral standing or like lack of available technology or in knowledge to even to like formulate and execute these things. It's just a matter of, I guess it is a matter of like, just being armed with information, being armed with knowledge, so that we can create the reality that we want. And I feel like, in 2025, we definitely, in the West and the developed world, quote unquote, we have access to many resources that we can use to build a really beautiful picture of a whole integrated world of diverse people who are all thriving and coexisting and like giving of what is beautiful in their own niche to weave together a cohesive whole. And it's just like a really beautiful thing, being exposed to so many places all over the world, like seeing how people are living and like what really is quality of life. What is a measure of quality of life? Like when I'm living in the United States and I'm just like plugging away hard to try to just get what the consensus reality would consider a basic living, like a car, a nice clean place to live, and then like, clothing and food and like utilities and like cell phone, whatever, you know what I mean? It's like, how difficult does it need to be for working people to have basic consensus reality necessities, to be able to like participate in the culture that we have around us, which is like all this like exporting all this music and like film and this kind of stuff. Like in the United States, we're big on that. It's just interesting to kind of contemplate what might be missing from that picture. Like just in any given system, there's gonna be blind spots, and trying to like elucidate what the blind spots are in order to learn like what we don't know, so that we can like fill the gaps in our understanding, like learning a language. Like, you might have a super strong vocabulary and just lack the sentence structure and grammatical aspect of the language, and you have perfect pronunciation and plenty of vocabulary, but you just lack some certain structural organizations of what you already have to actually like fully articulate with eloquence, like and proficiency in a second or third or fourth language. And it would just be so cool, right? Like to, in other aspects of our lives and other aspects of our culture, to kind of integrate that into like what we're doing. I think that would be super rad. Like to just apply all of those like little small tidbits of really helpful, useful information that we can use and just apply that to the way that we like build our societies. Like, I think about like how to make the world more sustainable. It certainly isn't going to be through like broadcasting a message. It would be if you examine our culture and how there's like these super high energy consumption systems with tons of energy runoff playing out, like that's just like how we provide for the quality of life that we deem as like consensus reality basic or beyond, you know, like man, it's so wild. Well, yeah, like to build like to use like the consumption engine revving like inherent like desire to consume, to kind of like guide people through an experience where they're actually being led into the habits that are helping the world without it being explicitly like depicted as such. I mean, like you could say that that's manipulation, you could say that that's applied psychology, but I mean these things can be used for good, like understanding the human psyche, understanding like certain cultural context, and like building bridges like between self and other, between the unconscious, subconscious, and conscious, and just like weaving together the very best, the most exquisite aspects of what we have to offer as the human race into a beautiful, cohesive, global culture that can thrive without all of these like neurotic, violent tendencies. Because I feel like there's so much energy created every single day. There's so much energy extracted every single day from the earth, and so much energy burned and wasted, and so much frivolous use of this insane abundance that we have available to us on the planet. And it's just so sad to see it going to waste, not because of any other reason really, other than inefficient systems. If we could somehow engineer systems that enable us to have a similar quality, or a similar quality to the life that we're living, to as like where we're at and what we do in our society. But it's I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if it's possible to sustain what we've become accustomed to, at least in the United States, say like middle class people, what that lifestyle entails, and like the nuclear family, and just how people are separated from their extended family, which kind of puts a big strain on individual family units' resources. Because I mean, if it's just, you know, you have the like land in your family and the whole like grandparents, great grandparents, if you got them, like parents, kids, cousins, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, living like proximal to each other in their own kind of little spaces with like communal spots, like that just seems so much better of an environment to grow up in than having like for the future generations and the kids to just have that, and like for like generations to mix, and for elders to exchange information with the youth, and youth to exchange new ideas from what is gestating. Like it's just all so beautiful, and like the world is so beautiful. There's so many different kinds of art and music and food and like languages and just different ways of expressing ourselves, with like the various like tools and like iterations of our great capability, and it's just a shame to watch it all like have to go in these like neurotic, like violent routes with like so much conflict could be avoided, like internally and interpersonally and on a global like geopolitical level. So much could be avoided if we just abandoned certain disempowering, poor thinking and assumptions. You know, it would be like building a million bridges that suddenly connect like the entire like neural network in the cosmos, and just this most beautiful like flourishing, graceful, dancing, like cohesive whole reality. I hope we get there. But for now, we are stuck in ghost ice hauntings. Ghost ice hauntings.